All right. Hello, everybody. It is a kind of overcast Thursday here in San Antonio and about 60 degrees, which is a huge change from those digit temperatures we had last week. It's been super busy for the Geekdom community. We just wrapped up filming for our pre-accelerator demo day. You can watch it on our Facebook and YouTube live channels on September 18th at 6 o'clock. Please stay tuned. We've got a whole bunch of really great things planned for you that evening. So tune in, watch our founders be amazing, and share their stuff. Today, I'm really excited, though, to introduce you to Heather Hanson with BioMedSA. We're going to go over some questions about what the organization is, what they have going on. Heather, thank you for joining us. Do you mind introducing yourself and giving a little bit of a background on your experience to our viewers?
Yeah, hi, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. So I started out my career as a manufacturing engineer and quickly transitioned to design engineering. My degrees are in mechanical engineering. And after about 24 patents, I decided I was done with design engineering and I went into project management and then from there, executive management. So my career has focused over 20 years in the medical device development area.
Thank you, man, heavy hitter. Well, we're really excited for you to join the team of BioMedSA. I know that you said you're relatively new to the staff, but I know that you're already making a really great impact on what's going on. I don't know that everybody in our ecosystem, though, really knows what BioMedSA is. Could you tell us a little bit more about the organization itself and kind of how long it's been around?
Sure. So BioMedSA was founded in 2005. And it exists to support the acceleration of the growth of the life science industry in San Antonio. So that's healthcare providers as well as education, research, and companies and entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. Thank you. San Antonio is pretty well known for its biomedical community. I know we have a lot of really great research projects that happen, in the public as well as the private sector and as well as like the government sector. And so I think it's really great that, we have an organization like BioMedSA that can help commercialize all of that research and make a huge impact, not just for here in San Antonio, but, for people around the world. Can you elaborate a little bit on the funding resources for your industry?
Sure. So we do a lot of programming and have a lot of resources for industry in a variety of topics. Some of them are how-to things, making collaboration connections, but of course, fundraising is an important thing for the industry. So on our website and our communications, we put up links and information on federal grants, state grants, local grants, how to apply for them and what the links are so people can get there. And I'm excited to announce that we are starting a new event. It is a pre-fiesta event, and it is concentrating on financial health of companies. So we are going to have potential investors present, and there'll be a pitch competition. We're going to showcase intellectual property available for license and really help build up the interactions between inventors and companies and those who have funding available.
Awesome. I know that's a huge component. I mean, so it's not just like whether or not people have great ideas, whether or not we have great research, whether or not we have a great need for these ideas, but also how do you fund them? That's always the big question: is who's going to pay for it? Where do I go to get these resources? So I also think it's a really great addition to have that pre-fiesta event and just really capitalize on all of the excitement, hopefully in 2021, that we're going to have in the spring and actually, be able to celebrate a little bit more. You did mention some entrepreneurial concepts or programs that you're putting together. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the different kinds of programs that you guys offer to entrepreneurs?
Yeah, and our programs are offered to everyone, not just entrepreneurs, but as you mentioned, some of them focus more on the entrepreneur. So we have our webinar series coming out on medical device development and pharmaceutical development. And these series are going to cover the basics of the process, as well as focusing on regulatory issues to get your approval to market your device or your pharmaceutical, including software as well. And so those will be coming up. We also are doing some work on the workforce development. We are partnered with the city to promote a subsidized on-the-job training program. So entrepreneurs can take advantage of this, as well as other companies up to 500 employees. And the way this works is a company agrees to train someone for 8 to 12 weeks that wouldn't have been qualified for that job otherwise. And, presumably it's someone who's unemployed, who's trying to get back into the workforce. And the city will put in $250 a week toward that person's salary or income in order to provide that training. So that's a pretty exciting program we have. We also have some working groups we have that entrepreneurs can participate in on looking at areas of our industry in San Antonio that we could improve upon or optimize. The current one we have right now is on clinical trials and how can we become the best, known to be the best city for clinical trials in the country. Last year we did over 1,400 clinical trials, so it's not like this is a new space for San Antonio, but we really want to optimize that process and make it a lot easier to do clinical trials in San Antonio and get that national recognition, because our population is very representative of the diversity of America from an ethnic standpoint as well as a pre-existing disease standpoint. And so we are a premier location to do clinical studies.
Wow. I mean, you guys are really touching on a lot of amazing things. Clinical trials are huge. That's definitely how things get vetted. And it is a slow process, but it's definitely well worth it. Which is why I think, again, like having an organization like BioMedSA come in and support the life sciences and the commercialization of these projects, and also just support the research in general, is so huge, because I think you can speak to this from a lot of experiences that, development of anything new really just takes a lot of time. But when you're talking about, healthcare or having anything to do with life sciences, it can just take an even longer period because there's so much vetting and research that has to be done in order to get it through all of the regulatory bodies, as well as just the testing that needs to happen. So that's amazing. Just a reminder to everybody who's tuning in, if you have questions, comments for Heather or for Geekdom, please drop them into our comments section. We'll make sure that we'll be able to see them in the chat on our end and get those answered for you. So moving on, we've got, what are some of the additional programs? You said that you had some new stuff coming in the pipeline. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on some of those new projects?
Yeah, and a lot of this is new or getting ramped up to be bigger and more inclusive and more involved. Our first webinar series we'll have coming out this fall will be on local manufacturing in San Antonio that can benefit the medical device and pharmaceutical industries. So a lot of times people move here from somewhere else and they're comfortable using their suppliers from wherever they came from. And we have almost every supply chain you need in San Antonio for medical device and pharmaceutical. So that's pretty exciting to showcase those so we can keep it local. We also have our Innovation Award event is coming up. It is next week on Thursday evening. And so we are gearing up at full speed for that.
That's exciting. So, manufacturing in San Antonio, it's actually kind of just like the biomedical or the life sciences industries. We're actually a really prolific manufacturing town, which, puts us up for really great opportunities like what you're talking about. Having experiencing doing both like medical stuff and manufacturing, what are some of the biggest challenges that most people who are trying to get into these spaces, really have?
Well, from the entrepreneur perspective, it's generally not knowing enough of whatever they're trying to do. You can't know everything. And so the key thing is to find the right partners to help you get where you need to go. And so I'm a proponent of entrepreneurs learning the basics on their own and then outsourcing the details so they at least know kind of where they're going with it. One of the biggest challenges with medical device manufacturing is the documentation required. And some people think you need way more than you need, but most people think you need less than you actually need. So it's getting that balance. So you're documenting what you're doing so that if there is an issue later that needs to be traced back, you can trace it back to how this lot is different from that lot and that kind of thing, as well as passing FDA inspections.
No, I mean, that's definitely really fantastic information and insight. A lot of entrepreneurs who are getting into this space, maybe they have a really great idea and they're not really sure how to go about starting to build out a prototype. And especially if you're trying to get into the life sciences or the biomedical space, there's a lot of things that you need to have prepped. And, unfortunately, there's so many, different ways of doing it, though you have to go through the same channels. I think it's kind of one of those experiences that you kind of have to go through it. And so if you can tap into a really solid network, like with what BioMedSA is putting together, then you know that you have trusted partners, trusted advisors, and mentors who have gone through those processes and experiences that can help you, one, find the pitfalls and avoid them, and two, also maybe help you figure out how to streamline your approach as well. You had mentioned something about your Innovation Award event, and I'd love to hear more about that and what people can expect.
Yeah, so every year BioMedSA gives out an innovation award. Every other year it's national versus local. This is a local recipient, and it's Dr. Rena Bizios from UTSA. And she has been a pioneer in research in tissue engineering from the aspect of the interface between cells and other materials. So she is getting this award. And this year being, with COVID, you can't meet in person. We're doing a virtual award. And the event is actually innovative in itself, in that it will enable people to network in video chats, just like you and I are doing now, with someone they want to meet, or if they don't know anybody, they can click a button and it's like a speed dating thing where it assigns you to someone and you meet them that way. Our sponsors have put together themed sessions on topics that they can talk about. And we also have an expo booth section, so you can learn about companies here in San Antonio by watching a video, and you can register interest to be contacted later. And something unique we're doing this year as well is we have a COVID-19 video montage, which is highlighting what member companies have done in the area of COVID. So everywhere from healthcare, clinical studies, and innovation from a company perspective and research. We're doing a summary of that, of what we've done so far. And it's actually a lot of content. San Antonio companies have really stepped up and done a lot of things quickly in order to address the COVID situation. So that's a different element that we don't normally have in this event that we'll be having this year.
No, that's awesome. I mean, and I absolutely agree. One of the proudest things I think that we can look back on the last 6 months is really the talent and the willingness for San Antonians to get involved and to be helpful across a variety of industries. And I know that there were several groups, maker groups, as well as people in the biomedical life sciences industries that really wanted to target and leverage all of their expertise to make improvements to have really strong COVID-19 response. And so I think that's a wonderful tribute. And, congratulations to just being able to put something like that together. I mean, it's going to be such a valuable experience for everybody involved. And I'm really glad we get to celebrate a local innovator as well. I think that's fantastic. And we did have a question come in from Iris, and she asked, when is the bioscience manufacturing webinar you mentioned?
So it's going to be a series, and it's going to start in the fall. So late October, early November is when we'll start that. And it'll likely run through the end of the year and maybe even to next year as well, because we want to make sure we're highlighting a good, cross section of the industry.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you for your question, Iris. So how has San Antonio and the San Antonio, communities, how have we supported BioMedSA?
Well, from the very beginning, community partners have supplied some funding resources, space resources, in order for BioMedSA to get started. But we are a member-supported organization, as well as we receive support from the city of San Antonio. Beyond the financial side, San Antonio is known for being a city of collaboration, and particularly in the life science and technology areas. You notice a lot of other places are kind of cutthroat and everybody's scrambling and fighting each other to get ahead. San Antonio doesn't really have that. We are more of a collaborative city, and that applies to the way organizations interact with BioMedSA as well. As there's been a lot of support of mostly people's time where they pitch in and contribute to make something happen. So it's an exciting organization to be part of.
No, it definitely seems like it, Heather, and it sounds like you're doing really well where you are. And I'm so glad that you were able to join the team and take us even further in this direction. Because I'll agree with you, the collaboration that happens in our ecosystem and in San Antonio in general is really unique and special. And our emphasis on partnerships and really on our communities, I think, is what helps us really stand out. Um, so, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but how has COVID-19 affected your organization's activities?
Well, the life science industry as a whole has been busier. So obviously, the clinical care hospitals have been busier. Some of the other sectors of the industry where it's elective procedures have been less busy. Companies are pretty much full steam ahead trying to get their products out. So there's a lot of activity going on, and it's moved to the virtual format. Um, and there's a lot of platforms, software platforms to make that happen. We're on one right now. So we're focusing on the support that we can give to the existing industry that's here right now. So we make sure that we don't have anybody fall out or come on difficult times that we're not trying to help them. So we're focusing on that right now more than we would focus on recruitment of new companies, although we do that as well. And we are going to add a component of that in as we look at reshoring opportunities, as medical device and pharmaceutical companies have a desire to reshore some of their manufacturing. We definitely want San Antonio to be considered for that. So we are looking at that, but mostly focused on building up our industry here and supporting the ecosystem that's here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And speaking of the ecosystem that's here, wanting to kind of circle back to that community engagement and thought leadership, how important is it for BioMedSA to have, intense community engagement and really tap into those thought leaders, those industry innovators, and so on?
Yeah, it's very important because if it's just the direction from BioMedSA itself, then it's a very limited breadth and limited input. So we have a 28-member board for a reason. Now that would be a lot for a corporate company, but for our organization, we use them as a sounding board for policy decisions, initiatives, and just to get feedback of various topics. How does this affect a hospital? Maybe different than a specialty healthcare provider, a big company, small company, research, educational institutions. So all of those are very important. And of course, we have military medicine here in San Antonio, so we want them engaged as well, and they're on our board. So we really use that community input in order to guide what we're doing, and particularly in the area of our targeted teams that we're tackling issues like the clinical trial task force, or planning workforce development. We get feedback from our members on where the job shortage is, where's the educational gap to meet those job shortages, so we can fix those issues and make sure our workforce is very healthy for the industry.
Yeah, no, I mean, a 28-person board does sound quite a bit, but when you're talking about the kinds of solutions or innovations or things that you're trying to put together, they're all very mission critical, very, health oriented life. I mean, there's just so many important things that are going on that if you don't have the right people in the room as you're making these decisions, especially at the policy levels, like what you're talking about, that can have really bad, like big setbacks. And so, kudos to you for being able to herd all the cats on the board and working with all of them in a collaborative fashion to move us forward. We had another question come in, which was, Heather, have you seen any significant growth in our bioscience ecosystem since the pandemic started?
We don't have numbers on that yet. We do an economic impact study every 2 years that the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce heads up. And so we don't have that kind of real-time data. There will be, the new report is coming out in November, but that will cover 2019, 2018, because it takes a long time to compile the data. So overall, for the past 10 years, we've added 50,000 jobs, for example, in San Antonio. So the industry's been growing, but we don't have, shorter duration data at this point.
Thank, I I also think too that with all of the things that are going on with COVID-19 and how much people are having to pivot and how much it's transitioned so many different industries and markets, like it's probably going to take us more than a couple years to really suss out exactly what the impact or the potential, is as we move forward, which is just the sign of the times, right? Like we're going to figure it out at some point. But I think that it's really cool that thank you for telling us about the report coming out in November, because I know that when people are looking for opportunities on where to start their businesses, and Texas is a growing market or opportunity state for so many investors as well as entrepreneurs and other larger companies coming in, for biomedical science and life sciences, like this is definitely a hub. And so it'll be really excellent to point back to those numbers and for those entrepreneurs and businesses to make decisions based off of the growth that we're seeing in those fields. So we have a few more minutes with you guys. So please, more questions. I know Heather would love to connect with you guys and to talk to you and tell you all about her upcoming events and all the other things. So are there any tools or services that you personally or BioMedSA really like to leverage, for entrepreneurs? Like, hey, if you're really interested in this, you should go check out these tools or these resources. I'd love to hear more about, your experiences with those.
Yeah, one of the things is BioMedSA is a hub of the life science industry in San Antonio is we're trying to put a lot of that stuff as much as we can on our website. And we update our website almost every day with more information. So that's a really great place to start, whether you're looking at, the fundraising stuff or what companies are here, you can sort based on what they do. So if you need a company that does pharmaceutical manufacturing, you can pull up a list of all of those that are in San Antonio. And as we have more webinars, those will be, linked up on there as well. So that's a great place to find resource. And a lot of times it links to somewhere else, but that gets you, as a starting point. What I have found the best in working with entrepreneurs as a consultant for many years is that if you need to leverage your network and understand, as I mentioned earlier, the basics of what you're trying to outsource enough so you can pick a right partner. I've worked with many clients as a consultant who have picked the wrong outsourcing partner. And when you do that in the medical device world, you can often have to repeat things because they didn't have the user needs captured correctly, or they didn't do a risk assessment till the end and then found out there's some flaw in the device that would have a safety issue that has to be, then you have to go back and fix it, or they don't produce the documentation that you can use in manufacturing to build it. So really picking that partner of who you're going to outsource with or partners is very important. And I think the best way to do that is to have your own basic understanding first. So that is my biggest advice for people who are doing a medical device, is to make sure you find that out before it's too far down the road.
Yeah, no, because I mean, I imagine that it's almost exponentially more expensive and costly, like not even in terms of monetary, but just costly in terms of the time spent, because it's such a long process and you really don't want to have all of that runway get burnt up chasing rabbits down the wrong holes and things like that. And so definitely tapping into communities like yours and resources like yours to help identify what those outsourcing needs are and who can actually deliver on those needs, before a lot of money is exchanged and or you get too far down the road with your projects. Because once it's kind of gone, if you don't have the proof, that you've had successes, getting additional resources and grants or funding on top of that to drive it forward, I imagine does not last very much. Sadly. And so when you're looking at new founders as well, are your programs for later stage companies, early stage companies? Are there independent entrepreneur opportunities to like join teams and stuff like that? Can you maybe speak to who exactly can plug into these programs?
Yeah, so the educational components like medical device development, those are geared for people who aren't familiar with the industry. So this would be entrepreneurs, or maybe they've worked in their piece of medical device development, but don't have the whole big picture, which you need as an entrepreneur. So that's certainly an area they can plug into. And really understanding that because San Antonio is the friendly city of science and health, really plugging into the network and getting extra information in disease areas can be helpful as well, which is why next year we are setting up some targeted networking collaboration meetings based on disease area targets. San Antonio is very strong in 5 disease areas, and we may be adding other ones as well, but the primary 5 are diabetes, cancer, infectious disease, trauma, regenerative medicine, and neurological disorders. So we'll be setting up events to get researchers, doctors, and entrepreneurs, engineers on those topics together so they can learn from each other and get to know each other. So you have that person you can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, can you answer this question about whatever? Or presumably join up on grant opportunities because collaborating grants are stronger and more likely to be funded. So.
Absolutely, because then I think the people who are supplying the funds really feel like, one, you have a great holistic approach, that you have enough people in place to cover all your bases, as well as to be thorough enough to document the way that you need to and have that research actually like come through in the very end. I think it's really amazing too that we find ourselves in such a unique city that is super collaborative already. Like, what a really great time to have you guys, already have been established to plug into these communities, and then to be able to leverage what is a really difficult situation in time for everybody, but like really maximize that opportunity and be able to commercialize on that innovation that's coming. Are there a couple of really cool companies or startups that maybe we're not aware of, in the BioMedSA community that you'd really like to highlight now?
Well, one I'd like to talk about a lot is Crown Scientific. And what is very unique about them is they originally were their own research company doing their own research, and that funding source dried up. And so they pivoted and they have become an incubator for therapeutic development. And this is very unique for any city to have, because most incubators focus on either the software side of the IT side of the healthcare industry or the medical device side. So I don't know of another therapeutic incubator, and we have one in San Antonio. They have 4 companies there, and they have everything you need, plus scientists to brainstorm with. They have the animals to do the preclinical studies. So that to me is a great resource that we are very fortunate to have.
That's amazing. Therapists are near and dear to my heart. My mom's a speech language pathologist, and she had lots of friends who are occupational therapists. And there's a lot of really amazing transformative things that can happen through therapy. And I'm so glad that, we have something like that here that can help further that industry and really change people's lives, for the better. Heather, this has been such a fantastic chance to get to know you more and get to know BioMedSA more. Are there any final closing thoughts, last minute things you want to promote, cool things on the horizon we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Well, we are constantly adding more new things. So the best way to keep in contact is to go visit our website, and there's a contact button where you can get on our mailing list, and then you'll find out about all of these things. There's also information about membership up there if you'd like to become a member. We also have some cost savings opportunities that I didn't get into, but one thing I'll just highlight for entrepreneurs is a free press release, up to 10 hours of work by the same PR agent that does BioMedSA stuff. And that's open to our members that are small companies and startups. But we also have other cost savings things on lab supplies and insurance and credit, financial credit. So all sorts of other things as well that is available through BioMedSA membership.
That's amazing. So basically, if you're a part of the BioMedSA group, you can receive the discounts on supplies. You also can get in touch with really fantastic suppliers that have been vetted through your network, so you know that you're getting quality materials as well as really great deals. And then the PR, I mean, that's amazing to be able to have access to something like that. It's really hard to get your name out there or to be picked up and noticed if you don't have a really good relationship or a really great marketing or PR strategy. So that just sounds like just a really great chance for people who are looking to get involved, to get started. Please go ahead and hit up BioMedSA in their community. We're really fortunate that they're part of our partner ecosystem and that we're continuing to collaborate with them further. Heather, this was a phenomenal chance to get to talk to you again, and we're really looking forward to your event on the 17th and the webinar series that's starting in November that'll carry through 2021. With that, we hope you guys have a really fantastic rest of your week. Heather, thank you again.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Have a great day, guys.